Many thanks to Craig and the team for having me along today from Call Scotland to do a presentation on Fluency Tutor. Delighted to be here, so thanks guys for inviting me along. So we're going to do a quick run through on what Fluency Tutor is, and then I'll show you how it all works. So a few slides to begin with. Just to begin with, for any of you who don't know me, my name's Andrew Campbell. I've been working for TextHelp for the past 11, nearly 12 years, and been the account manager for Scotland in that time. So been working with Call Scotland and been on these webinars and their events for a long time, and always delighted to have the chance to speak to you guys, part of Call Scotland. So TextHelp is a company. Very quickly, who we are. We're based in Northern Ireland, as you may have got from my accent, but we have a worldwide presence. We're in countries all across the world. We have over 40 million users now of our software. Been on the go for quite a while, and we're inclusion and accessibility experts, but our products span right across literacy, maths, science, right across that spectrum. A lot of you will probably have heard of things like Read and Write before. Read and Write's probably our most notable product, particularly in Scotland. A lot of the authorities are using it right across their authorities there. Orbit Notes and the ever growing popular one as well. It's something that can be used in exams on Chromebooks, and also as a PDF solution, making editing PDFs. So you're certainly able to hear about that one soon if you haven't already. And Equatio, which is our maths tool, that makes maths easier to do, both in an accessible sense, and if you've got things like Chromebooks, can really transform how you do maths on those. But today we're going to talk about reading assessment with Fluency Tutor. So if we want to make avid and fluent readers, we need to spend time with our students and working with them and listening to them reading and timing them in the reading and seeing how fluent they are and giving them that attention and to see and track how they're performing in terms of reading. But that can be very difficult. It can be difficult to find time to do that. Particularly you think, right, we're going to do that today, and you see a line of students ready to come and read to you and take that time that you want to work with the student, but you're thinking, where am I going to get the time to do that? With your already growing to-do list from last week, as more things added onto it, and where are you going to find the time to listen to every student reading amongst everything else? And on top of that, then you need to find content for the students to read. So you have to think, right, what are we going to give to them to do the reading today? What's appropriate for each student and the level that student's at? And that takes more time as well. So, and then you do all that, you found content for them, you've took the time to get them up to reading, and some of your students still aren't going to be engaged in reading. It's just how it often the case, but you want to find some way to make them more engaged. And that's where Fluency Tutor comes in. It's a web app, so it is one. It's a Google web app, so you need to have a Google account. There's really all around usage with Google. You have a Google account. There's a web app that you can go in. You can pick from over 500 reading passages that are already built into Fluency Tutor, or there's easy ways to create content and share with your students. You can tailor it by their reading age, what they're interested in. You then send that to your students, who then can access it on a Chromebook or on a laptop. They go in, they can read the passage aloud that you've sent to them, and then they record themselves reading it and send it back to you. You then get that recording, and you can go in and score that. And that can be done in the student's own time, it can be done as homework, it can be done in class, but then you can mark it whenever you want and whenever you get time to do it. And really, it's all about making students more avid readers, and the more opportunities they have to get those critical factors that's necessary for comprehension, like fluency, and the more fluent they'll become, the more time they have to do that. A child who becomes an avid reader will consume 400 times more text by the age of 16. So it's a real impact on their lives if we can make them more avid readers and find ways to engage them in doing that. And I think you'll find that once, and what we find with the teachers who use the feedback we get, is that the students are engaged. It's a new way of doing it. It's using technology. It's interesting to them. They're excited by it, and there's an opportunity for them to work in their own time and independently, and maybe not having to stand up in front of everyone to read as well as a big part of it. So let's show you how it all works. We'll do a quick run through on how it works. There are a few questions that'll be answered at the end as well. So begin with, I'm going to go to fluency.texthelp.com, and that opens up Fluency Tutor. Once you log in for the first time, it's going to ask you, a teacher or are you a student, and you just put in that you're a teacher to get started. You can log in with Google Classroom. So in here you can say, yeah, you want to sync up with Google Classroom. Click here. That's going to tie in your Google Classroom. It's automatically going to find that for you. So you'll see there, these are my classrooms that I've set up. I'm going to pick the Fluency Tutor one and update that. Don't worry, if you're not using Google Classroom, you can do it just through Fluency Tutor. It doesn't need to be done through Google Classroom. You can manage it through the Fluency Tutor dashboard. And that's where I'm at the moment. So there's different tabs along the left-hand side here. So I'm going to give you the workflow of how Fluency Tutor is going to help you to share passages with your student. So I'm going to go share passage down here. This is where I'm going to find all the built-in passages that are in Fluency Tutor. And I can filter. So the top right here, I've got a filter. That allows me to filter by Lexile level, guided reading level, or reading age. And in reading age here, I'm going to say that let's go with somewhere between 8 and 10. And I can put in keywords in here. So, saying about engaging students, something that they're interested in, that they want to read about. So it could be somewhere like animals, for example. I'm just going to apply these filters here. So I've done that. And I'm going to click into the first one. This one's about cheetahs. I say there's hundreds and hundreds of passages in here. You don't need to even think about creating stuff. It's done for you. And here's one on cheetahs. So before I send this to my students, I can see that there's comprehension questions set up in here as well that they're going to do. And then I can go up here and into settings, and I'm going to set up which voice they're going to access it with, and I'll explain that in a second. Whether you want them to do the comprehension questions, whether they want to have tools to support them when they're doing it, and the translation language. So if I pick, let's say, Ukrainian, and confirm, I'm now going to share that with my students. So I can share this via Google Classroom or Google Drive. I'm just going to do it by Google Drive for this example, and the way I have it set up here. And I'm going to send it to my own email address. So this, as you think of as the student version. So if I quickly here, just switch up my accounts, and I'm going to go into Gmail. So check this out through the student dashboard on Fluency Tutor. So you'll see here the dashboard. This is the student's version of it, and I can see, right, check for passages. If I go into Google Drive, I can see whether or not I've had a passage sent to me. Well, let me just double check I sent that properly. I'll just open up Gmail. My teacher sent around cheetahs. I think my Google Drive possibly isn't set up properly on this format. That's why it hasn't worked. So if I go in here, go into cheetahs, and I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to open it with Fluency Tutor. Just going to sign in. So I, as a student, have now received this passage from my teacher, and say I could be at home doing this or doing it in class. And before I go in and read it aloud, I can do text to speech. I'm not entirely sure if the sound's going to come through on this, but I'm going to play it anyway. Hopefully the sound doesn't come through. I've been having a bit of trouble with that today. So you can have it read aloud, text to speech is there. You can change that voice if you want to use a different one. Loads of different options on what voices to use there. Then you can do things like dictionary. So take the word fastest and put in dictionary. I get a definition of that word. Or let's say I go picture dictionary. I get a picture for that word as well. So whatever word I pick, I'll get a picture for that. So I take cheetahs and go picture. I get a picture of a cheetah. And then you have translation as well. So if I pick a word, let's say reason, click translate, I get the translation as well. And it reads it out loud. So I've read it through. I'm happy enough. I've read it. I know all the words now. Any I weren't sure on, I've read them aloud. Or I've got the text reader to read them for me. So now I'm going to click record, and I'm going to record myself reading this passage. So I click start recording. This is now recording me. Cheetahs are known for being speedy. In fact, they are the world's fastest land animal. When they reach their top speed of 70 miles per hour, no other animal can keep up. So I'll keep reading it right through to the finish and click stop. At that point, then I can play it back. And I know from talking to teachers who have used this, it's something that they're amazed at how often students like to play it back and hear themselves reading it, and trying it again to perfect it. which is really interesting to hear that that's how they've used it. Once they're happy with it, though, they click "I'm finished." It's going to ask them to do their comprehension questions, and again, these can be all read aloud. So I can pick that one, and I'll just go through quickly here and select these. So they're reading it, and you want them reading it aloud and reading it fluently, but you also want to make sure that they're comprehending what they're reading as well. So it's not just sort of reading it mindlessly and not picking it up. So that's it. The student's done their part, and it's now been sent through to the teacher. So I, as the teacher, I'm back in my teacher dashboard. Let's think of me as the teacher for now. I can see, right, Andrew Campbell completed that assignment. And I can also see the words that I checked using the dictionaries and the picture dictionary. And if I click on vocab list over here, this one, it's going to create a table for me with the words and the definition and the picture of the words that I had to check. So not only is Fluency Tutor going to help you with setting content for your students to read and for scoring it, it's also going to help you put strategies in place to improve their reading. One of these is in this way, in that they can actually, any words that you know that they're struggling with, you can share the likes of this with them and say, like, learn these, and I'll show you another way in a second around the stats. But I'm going to go in and score this passage now. So I click score this passage, and I'm going to go and press in here. If I press play, I'm going to hear myself reading. So the first one there, I like to claim that I purposely messed up on that word. I actually didn't, but as a good example, I would say that you're going to pick then at this point the type of error that you've heard your student make. So it's mispronunciation, hesitation, insertion, omission, substitution, transposition, self-correction, maybe a bit of a hesitation from me there. And when I click it, you'll hear there it's still reading, so I'm still hearing that reading. So if I made a mispronunciation there, for example, I click it, and you'll see over here on the side, mispronunciation gets added in, and we're seeing the amount of errors your students are making. Over here is what you're seeing the comprehension score, words per minute, words correct per minute, self-correction rate, and error rate. So you just keep going, play it right through, or as much as you want to listen to it through to get a flavour of how the student's doing, and score it as you go through. And once you're finished, then you click save scoring. And it's easy as that, like it marked so quickly. And then at this point, so it's not just kind of a tally of errors. You as an expert, as a teacher, want to give a rubric here on what you're hearing in terms of fluency. So you go through a score of 4 based on what you've heard the student do in terms of fluency. And then you also have a chance to give some more detailed feedback here, or a nice note for the student on how they performed. And click finish, and that's as easy as that in terms of actually scoring a student's work. So if I go in over here now, you can see my students that are in my dashboard. If I pick that one that I've done, so that with Andrew Campbell, and I can check back through over a period of time. So since the start of the school year, there's how I performed, and I haven't done that many with that account. But you can imagine as a teacher using it every day, how many accounts you would have, or many passages would have scored in here. And you would see the words correct per minute and fluency scored tracked over that time. You can also then export that information to Google Sheets. This is really helpful for any like inspections or reports. You're working with particular students, you want to show how they've been performing over a certain period of time. But you can also then see things like I mentioned about putting strategies in place to work with students. You can see over here the type of errors that they're making on the passages you've sent to them. So you can see, right, this student is always doing substitutions or omitting words, for example. You say, right, we need to work with them and their pacing and their reading and their fluency, so that they're not always skipping words. It just gives you an idea of what exactly you need to work with the students on. And you can see things as well, a lot of other stats there around total recording time and words correct per minute, as that error rate will be there too. Lots of useful data there that can inform reports and strategies. Last thing, so I mentioned about creating content as well. So there's content built in within Fluency Tutor, loads of it. But if you find there's certain students you really need to go that extra mile to engage them a bit more, you can go in and create content here. So you just go in and type into here whatever you want them to read. Or an even easier way, you'll see here it says install Chrome extension. If you go to, say you had a student that isn't really into reading, but they like football. Some in your class think, right, really like football, can't get them into reading, but I want to engage them in that. So what you could do is say, right, we've got Champions League report from last night. Find a team that they like, or it could be whatever it is on the web, something that's going to engage them. All you do is click here, the Fluency Tutor extension, and that's going to turn that passage into a Fluency Tutor passage, so that website into a Fluency Tutor passage. And you can go in and edit it. So say there was a bit you thought like that's going to be too tricky for them, just go in and delete it, or if it's too long, whatever it might be, go in and delete it, add other text in here, whatever it might be, and then that's your passage, which I'll show you what that's like for the student side of it again. So I'm just going to click share, and I'm going to share it to that same student again. And if I go back into my student view in the inbox, you'll see there, right, that's just been shared. Open it up. And you'll see there the student has now got something about football or whatever it is they're interested in. They can read it aloud and have it read out to them, record themselves reading it, and they're reading something that they're maybe a bit more engaged in, but they're still reading. That's the key to it. You're getting them to read something, which can be a challenge. So yeah, that is a very quick run through on Fluency Tutor. I'll just go back to my dashboard. As I mentioned, you can tie in your classroom, do it through Google Classroom. Much the same idea. I'm now doing it through Classroom. If I go into students, or if I go to passage, share a passage, I can pick it and click share via Classroom instead. Select the class, do that, pick a date that I want to send to or send now, and create assignment, and that'll go to Classroom. And you'll get notifications in Classroom around it as well. That's the only difference. Just slightly easier to manage if you're using Google Classroom all the time. So yeah, I think I have covered pretty much everything. If you're very interested in, we can set up free trial. All you need to have is a Google account. Get a free trial. Just give me a shout. I'll give you my contact details again. Are on here. So it's andrewc@texthelp.com. So yeah, that is it in a nutshell. So really, it's all around making easier for you as a teacher to find time to work with students around their reading fluency, engaging them in reading, and hopefully making them more avid readers, making reading more exciting for students, which I think once they use the likes of Fluency Tutor, it really does have that kind of impact on it. This exciting new way of accessing technology, which say hopefully will have a big impact on their reading. So if anybody has any questions, I went through a quick run through on there. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat or shout out. I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I was actually just going to ask about the content, generating, creating content, but thanks, you covered that really well. It's fairly straightforward. Clever stuff, the way it generates all those reports. Yeah, if anyone has any questions for Andrew, either just pop your microphone on or pop them in the chat. What about the voices, Andrew? Are you kind of confined to what's on your desktop, or are they cloud-based voices? Or
so the ones for the student, I'll show you here. So if I go back into that assessment, I've completed that already. There we go, this one. So if you see there, when I go to voice, as I go to drop down, I've got loads of different ones. So we've got a Scottish one there, and pretty much all the ones you would expect in the Google sphere, really. The ones we have for reading right for Google are all available there too.
Yeah. So say you downloaded one of the Scottish voices from Google Play and installed it onto your machine. Would it pick up the voice to use it? That you could use it?
No, it wouldn't. It'll only pick up the ones that are on here.
On there, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
In theory, you could, if you had it and you used it with, well, say within Read and Write, where we will be adding a lot of the Scottish voices shortly. You could use that to read it, but for Fluency Tutor itself, it's just the ones that are built in there.
Yeah. So Faye's asking, is it just available through Google?
Yes.
So Yeah, so it's you really need at the minimum is a Google browser, the Chrome browser, don't you, to use
You need
it?
a Chrome browser and a Google account.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, actually meant to go back to it. You can use it through Google Classroom as well. So you'll see there at the bottom it says share with Google Drive or Google Classroom. It says, are you using Google Classroom? Click here, and that allows you then to bring in your classroom. So if I have one set up for Fluency Tutor, update class rosters. I'm now using Classroom to manage this, so it automatically brings in your data from Google Classroom. But yeah, you would have to have a Google account.
Yeah.
If you're using primarily Microsoft, as I mentioned at the start, they have a very similar tool. That might be the one for you. Might to look
Yeah.
into. It's a very similar idea.
Would it work on Edge, Andrew? Because a lot, the programs are running on Chrome and on Edge. I mean, I just tried it, but I need to sign in through my account. But I suppose it's worth a try.
Provided you could sign into Google, I think it
Yeah,
would work. I'm not
would.
sure on that actually. I've never been asked that.
Yeah.
But if you can sign into your Google, I don't see why it wouldn't. Unless we might need to update it for Edge. That I'm not sure of. Give it a try and see.
Yeah, I'm doing that just now. It's worth a try, but yeah, I'll give it a try. Sorry, Catherine's asking if your school already uses Google for Education, can you assume that Fluency Tutor can be used by students? Just thinking about the compatibility feature with Google Classroom.
Yeah. So if you said the school are already using Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're using Google, then it's seamless. Like they will all have Google accounts, I assume, or even the ones who use it through Glow. If you've got access to Google through Glow, you can do that and use it that way. So it's just a matter of, let's say, this teacher either doing it through Classroom or Google Drive. You would need access to Google Drive as well. But any school that's on Google will have that. And you say it's just a matter of, as a teacher, sharing it with them. If you do it through Google Classroom, it kind of automatically pulls that through. If you're doing it through Google Drive, your students will have to put in a code. So you'll see in there when I was in the teacher dashboard, if I go back to use Fluency Tutor to manage it, you'll see a code down here at the bottom that you can share with your students, and that kind of links you as the teacher with the student.
Oh, great. Catherine says, awesome. So didn't know
Cool.
if that was just a feature of the Google Education licenses, so that's good. Anything else or comments for Andrew?
We just if anyone's wondering, we can do like site licenses, so it'll cover your whole school can have it. Same authority wide. It'll vary. Again, most sort of things, the price will vary depending on the size of the school. But you can get a license to cover all students to use it.
Yeah, David, I'm just going to get that the URL you sent. Hopefully, this is the one. I'll pop this into the chat. Is this the right one, Andrew? David's asking what's the extension called, and I just put the link in there. HTTP. Yeah. So it's not so much. Is it an extension or is it an actual link that you need?
So to open Fluency Tutor, so Fluency Tutor is kind of like a web app rather than an extension. So you just go to fluency.texthelp.com. But there, as I showed you, there is an extension. If you go to Share Passage, it'll give you a prompt to install the Chrome extension, and then you'll say, right, well, for me, it's saying I've got it already. But if you don't have it, it'll take you a link to the Chrome store where you can get the extension then.
Sorry, Andrew.
No, I was going to say the only function of the extension is when you're on a website that it turns it into a Fluency Tutor passage. Otherwise, it's a web app.
Yeah, Faye's asked a good question. She's asking, what reading level does it go up to? But presumably, because you can create your own content, you could make it as hard or as difficult as you want, really. But
you can. Hopefully, you still see my screen okay there, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I go into the filters again, so that was, you go to Share Passage over here, and then you open your filter here. Then you go to, so you can do it by Lexile level, guided reading level, or reading age. Reading age is one I would be sort of familiar with, so that's why I do that. But
oh yeah,
I think it goes up to 15. Let me try that and say starting at 4. starts at 5 and goes to 15. So there's one for 15-year-old.
So sort of 15, secondary, late secondary.
That's your settings there. You can set that up for the student, so automatically defaults to the whatever voice. So you could have defaulted to UK, Scottish, Fiona. The dictionary language defaults. You have your translation language. I mentioned that you have to set that up for the student. So you do that here, where you would pick their language. So say, like, I want to do something like Arabic, you just scroll up, click Arabic, and that's going to be set up. They have a couple other options here I didn't mention. So you can turn the comprehension questions on or off. I always think it's handy to have them on. You can turn off the support tools. So if you didn't want them to have the text to speech and the dictionary and the picture dictionary, if they're doing a cold read, you can turn those off, and then you can share those or save those settings as well.
Okay. Andrew, producers asked quite a good question. Says, can you use this for tutoring, or is it just for whole schools? And I know in Scotland, Dyslexia Scotland have lots of, home tutors. It's the sort of thing that would be ideal. But I'm thinking that they would need to have a Google account. It's not something you could use independently, is it? Would there be a cost associated to it?
A good question. So we do have tutors that use it. You would need to have a Google account as the tutor for a start, but it's obviously handy enough to set up a Google account. So you could have then students wise, you would have to be able to. They would all have to Google accounts as well. So they would maybe have, if you wanted to use it specifically with students, and like could have it that they have a Google account that they just use for doing Fluency Tutor with their tutor. And for tutor, it's £99 per year for one copy. So it's priced on the tutor rather than the students. So the tutor would buy it for £99, and then the students use it for free, effectively. And that's the same for a school, where a teacher could buy it for £99 and say a site license allows all teachers to use it in the school, but the students always have free access. They just need to be tied to a teacher or associated with the teacher's account.
Yeah, so as long as pupils have a Google account, you can have as many individual students on there. I'm not sure if I've maybe answered David's question. Okay, David's asking, he's talking about the Chrome extension for shared passages from a website.
Yeah, so that's that one. If I'm on this website, that's the extension there. And when I click that, it turns it into the Fluency Tutor passage. Just go to the Chrome. If you just go to the Chrome store and search for Fluency Tutor, it'll give you that extension.
Okay.
But and also, if you go here, you'll see over on the left-hand side it says install Chrome extension. That's where you get the link to that as well. But you don't need the extension necessarily to use Fluency Tutor, but it's worth having for creating the content. But ultimately, it's a web app rather than an extension, the program itself.
Okay. Just see. That's it. I think that's all the questions. Thanks, Andrew. I think that the extension is blocked by organisation. That's always the pain, isn't it, when these things are blocked by local authorities or by organisations.
That was the feedback on someone said that?
Yeah, that was from David at Portree Primary School. He thinks it's maybe been blocked.
What authority is that?
It would be Highlands, I would think.
Highland would be one you could definitely, if you give Andy or give Robert Quigley a shout, or I can give Robert a shout and see about getting that pushed out.
Okay, great. Well, we're well over time, but sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if I go back to, I want to see if I go back into my presentation here. I'm going to show. There's my contact details. So it's andrewc@texthelp.com, or on Twitter at th_Andrew C. Anybody interested in trying it out, give me a shout. I'll get you set up with a free trial. Like I said,